It's hard to imagine a time before the advent of technology. Most of our modern conveniences rely on engineering that we cannot begin to understand. The average individual would be unable to create even the simplest kitchen appliance, like a microwave or refrigerator, but some machines accomplish tasks that are truly amazing. From the everyday to the obscure, we are counting down 10 machines that do incredible things. Henry Ford revolutionized the auto industry when he began making cars so cheaply and efficiently that the average middle-class citizen could finally afford them. He even doubled the minimum wage with his infamous $5 a day compensation program. At the time, this was huge money, but Ford needed a group of highly motivated and skilled workers on his production line. This worked in the early 20th century, but in the end, car makers found an even simpler and cheaper way to produce cars: the robotic car assembly. These machines create assembly lines that are highly repeatable and never tire or get distracted, so every cycle is performed the same way. Neither do they drop parts or handle them in a way that causes damage. That reduces waste previously caused by human error, and it also means less variability in car assembly. Equipped with vision systems, automotive robots can even detect variation in incoming materials and adapt their program paths to suit. This in turn translates to higher customer satisfaction, fewer mistakes, and lower warranty costs. Of course, they have replaced many jobs and displaced thousands of workers, but car manufacturers insist that the machines also keep conditions safer for workers. Serious injuries were extremely common for automotive employees before the proliferation of the robotic car assembly. Unless you're an engineer, the SL900 may sound like a random series of numbers and letters, but the SL900 and its WOW joint technology have revolutionized civil engineering forever. The device is a special piece of equipment for the construction of bridges and is mainly used in China. The 580-ton unit is 91 meters long and 7 meters wide. To construct most bridges of this size, it is necessary to build casting and scaffolding incrementally as the bridge begins to span the gap, but in this case, the SL900 bridges the gap itself, placing enormous prefabricated blocks of road in place as workers manually adhese the pieces. Contrary to the usual construction method, in which the precast elements are only a few meters long, the finished parts are made in full field length so that they range from a bridge pier to the next bridge pier after assembly. This machine truly must be seen to have a full understanding of the time and money it saves on huge construction projects. In many cases, it can cut the full length of construction in half and minimize costs greatly. Though it's not likely to become a household name anytime soon, the SL900 has transformed the world of civil engineering as we know it. This is another obscure machine that sounds like a bad username, but the Bagger 293 is no joke. The device was developed in a socialist East German combine. This was the distinction given to commercial enterprises in socialist countries, as citizens were not meant to own property, titles, or access to exclusive commerce. At its core, the Bagger 293 is an extremely efficient mining machine, or bucket wheel excavator. A bucket wheel excavator is a continuous digging machine in large-scale open-pit mining operations. If you've ever driven past a huge mining operation, you've probably seen one in action. The problem with these machines is that they are glacially slow and sometimes inefficient. On top of this, levels of metal recycling are generally low. Unless future end-of-life recycling rates are stepped up, some rare metals may become unavailable for use in a variety of consumer products. Due to the low recycling rates, some landfills now contain higher concentrations of metal than mines themselves. This is where the Bagger 293 comes in. It's the largest terrestrial vehicle in the world, according to Guinness World Records. It is 738.2 feet long, weighs 31.3 million pounds, and requires 5 people to operate. At this scale, the Bagger can collect earth and process it at an incredible rate, making it a highly efficient mining machine. This is another massive feat of engineering that was born from the former Soviet Union. The Belaz 75710 is an ultra-class haul truck manufactured in Belarus by Belaz. As of 2016, it is the world's largest, highest payload capacity haul truck. In other words, this is the world's largest dump truck. A far cry from the average dump truck, this machine can carry a 450 metric ton load. In addition to double axles and double wheels, it also has 4-wheel drive and 4-wheel hydraulic steering, which is unusual. It has a turning radius of about 20 meters. The machine is 39 meters tall and each wheel is significantly taller than the average person. The truck itself without a load weighs 360 tons. To put this in perspective, that's more than the combined weight of 215 cars. Because it has 4 sets of wheels that move independently, it takes many people just to operate the truck. Unsurprisingly, the vehicle tops out at a maximum 40 miles per hour, but it makes up for its sluggishness with sheer strength. Obviously, this machine was not built for conventional construction projects. The sight of this behemoth driving down a city street would incite panic among the populace. Instead, it was intended primarily for large-scale mining projects. In case you're planning to pick one up for personal use, these trucks usually run about $6 million apiece. The populace of Belarus is so proud of this monster dump truck that they even issued a commemorative stamp in its honor. The Large Hadron Collider, or LHC, is less obscure than some other machines on our countdown, but the science behind it is relatively esoteric. An extremely superlative device, the Large Hadron Collider is the world's largest and most powerful particle collider, and the largest machine in the world. It was built by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, or CERN, between 1998 and 2008 in collaboration with over 10,000 scientists and hundreds of universities and laboratories, as well as more than 100 countries. It lies in a tunnel 17 miles in circumference, and it's deep as 574 feet beneath the France-Switzerland border near Geneva. But the question remains, what exactly does the Large Hadron Collider do? CERN is home to half of the world's particle physicists. Over the course of decades, they have mounted numerous projects in the collider, but most famously, they created a rough facsimile of the conditions present at the universe's creation. Think of the LHC as a particle racetrack, where two beams of protons are propelled at unfathomable speeds in opposite directions and finally collide, releasing an immense amount of energy and a series of subatomic particles. Obviously, scientists cannot recreate the Big Bang itself, but they can recreate the universal conditions that were present immediately afterward. When we pass through a city park or botanical garden, it's easy to take for granted that such massive plants were placed in an urban space. But unless the trees were grown from saplings, transplanting them takes some serious machinery. A tree spade is a specialized machine that mechanizes the transplanting of large plants whose hand-powered removal, using traditional spades, wagons, etc., would be prohibitively laborious. A typical machine consists of a number of blades that encircle the tree, digging into the ground and then lifting the entire tree, including its roots and soil, out of the ground, and replanting or transplanting the whole tree in the designated area. Similar machines can also be used for placing trees in pots or baskets for commercial tree nursery operations. Tree spades are available in a wide variety of sizes and designs, but most are loaded onto the backs of enormous trucks, thus earning the name truck spade. While the mechanism is relatively simple, it accomplishes an incredible task that would be next to impossible using only civilian tools. However, they are available for commercial purchase, with most models costing about $20,000. Truck spade manufacturers also claim to be environmentally friendly because they allow for the removal of invasive plants while maintaining the health of the organism. Normally, when we tune into a rocket launch, the space shuttle is already sitting in place, poised to blast off into the cosmos. But do you ever wonder how they transport a massive multi-billion-dollar machine from one place to another? The answer is the Crawler Transporter. This machine comprises a pair of tracked vehicles used to transport spacecraft from NASA's Vehicle Assembly Building along a stretch of road playfully dubbed the Crawler Way. They were originally used to transport the Saturn IB and Saturn V rockets during the Apollo Skylab and Apollo Soyuz programs. They were then used to transport space shuttles from 1981 to 2011. Clearly, the technology was top-notch because these transporters helped some of humanity's most important space missions for almost 40 years. Each transporter costs about $14 million to produce. And while there are much larger vehicles in the world, the Crawler Transporter is by far the largest without an external power source. Each transporter weighs about 6 million pounds. The two Crawler Transporters were added to the National Register of Historic Places on January 21, 2000. Despite being recently antiquated, the Crawler Transporter played a vital role in the quest for humans to explore the known universe. Climate change has caused winters to be milder around the world, meaning that freezing temperatures would normally kill off certain organisms that are now flourishing. Chief among them is the pine beetle. In western North America, the current outbreak of the mountain pine beetle and its microbial associates has destroyed wide areas of lodgepole pine forest, including more than 16 million of the 55 million hectares of forest in British Columbia. The current outbreak in the Rocky Mountain National Park began in 1996 and has caused the destruction of millions of acres of ponderosa and lodgepole pine trees in Colorado. According to an annual assessment by the state's Forest Service, 264,000 acres of trees in Colorado were infested by the mountain pine beetle at the beginning of 2013. This means that there have been a record number of trees in need of clearing, and that's where the TigerCat 1075 comes in. The Swedish-designed machine has two independent arms that harvest full trees in a bundle and transport them safely away in a truck bed. While these devices are not useful in every community, they service a very real problem facing North America. Even outside of endemic pine beetle areas, these machines are useful for moving lumber. Most of the machines on this countdown are intended for large-scale industrial use. But what about something on a human scale? For the 4.3 million Americans who rely on a wheelchair for mobility, losing the ability to accomplish simple tasks is extremely discouraging. But with the help of the robotic arm machine, handicapped individuals now have the full use of a cybernetic human arm. The machine features 2 robotic arms programmed to help users easily perform everyday tasks like cooking, dressing, and shopping. Users can control the robotic arms from a touchpad, microphone, or joystick, depending on their abilities. For now, each arm can support 6 pounds. Scientists are designing a new arm strong enough to hold 150 pounds, pull a turkey out of the oven, or even pick a pot of spaghetti up off the stove. The device uses the power mechanism already in place on the wheelchair and fits very naturally into the pre-existing mobility setup. While it may not have the tech specs and massive size of other machines on our countdown, the robotic arm machine raises the quality of life for millions of people around the world, and the engineering behind the machine is equally as impressive. It took a full staff of doctors and engineers 5 years just to create a prototype. It seems that every aspirational vision of the future includes an image of flying cars for transportation. While this might be logistically impractical in the short term, the technology is there to make hoverbikes a reality. The device was first introduced by Kalashnikov, the Russian weapons maker behind the AK-47, one of the most commonly used semi-automatic rifles in the world. Using 16 rotors, the hoverbike can raise a rider a few feet off the ground and is meant for small-scale, fast-paced combat. Realistically, the bike will not be implemented by the military anytime soon, but perhaps it will be a complement to motorcycles and mopeds in the future.